technology will help the end product,
Mhm.
but it's not only technology, right? It's not just you have the best product in the market. You just have to be proficient. The technique is important to take advantage of that technology, right?
Mhm.
If you don't follow the specifications and the recommendations of the manufacturer, whatever you're using though, it will affect the end result.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Operatory. I'm your host, a podcast brought to you by the incredible team at Dental City. And the way that we have been putting these podcasts together, we've been kind of coming at them from two different angles, right? Angle number one, we've been inviting guests on that are more on the business practice management side of your dental practice, leadership, things like that can add value and help you in that side of the dental practice. The other side of it is, let's call it like it is, right? A dental practice is all about clinical. It's all about patients, as well as some of the great relationships that Dental City has with the manufacturers that they work with. And so today's Beyond the Operatory, we're very excited to have brought this to you in partnership with Kulzer. And when we bring on guests that are going to talk about a particular product or material that you're using in the practice, obviously the best way to do that is to have a clinician that has been there, done that, and has used it. And so I'm very excited today to be with Dr. Roberto Macedo, who is a prosthodontist at RM Advanced Center for Cosmetic Dentistry in St. Petersburg, Florida. He's been practicing for 26 years, and we are going to talk today about iCEM, Universal Plus Cement, and kind of get into, maybe we can geek out, right, Dr. Roberto, if we want to, for those that kind of like to know about these different materials. I know that you have a background on this, so it's great to have you. How you doing?
Hey, not bad. Thank you for having me. It's always good to talk about clinical stuff as well as business part of it because
Yeah,
they both, it's a combination, right? You have a
yeah.
business to run, but you also have good dentistry to perform. And it's always good to talk about stuff that you do it daily. So thank you.
Awesome. So you and I were talking before we came on here, and one of the earliest things that I learned in dentistry, I'm not a dentist, right? But I did work for a dental company and had to learn a lot about the different procedures. And that was, I learned early on that materials dictate technique. And so I'd love to maybe start there and, have you talk a little bit about, obviously we're going to get into iCEM and things like that, but how you like to approach utilizing different materials in your practice and why that is such an important decision for a clinician.
Well, that's a very it's a short question for a long answer. But as a prosthodontist, I'm a prosthodontist, right? So, and in a dental office, you always have that little chaos. So, what I like to say with my team, my students, if you will, is like you want to have a controlled chaos in a way. So the protocols, if you can nail it down, that comes to systems to how to perform a procedure and materials, etc. It just makes it a lot simpler and easier. And then eventually you get so good at it. So, and you can train more people, like the team. You don't need to be, scratching your head every time you try to do a procedure. So that's, I think it's important, the simplicity of whatever you're doing, and if you can bring it to the practice, it makes it so much easier.
Yeah, and as you know, there are a lot of different materials out there, but such a great point, right? That you got to think about your entire team in regards to the systems that can support that at scale, as well as the patients. And I'm always curious, how do the patients come into play here? I mean, I know as a dental patient, like maybe because I have a background in dentistry, that I might be curious to know what type of materials are being used for restorations, but not all patients know that. But how important is it? You think from the patient's perspective, the decision that you make as a clinician on the materials.
Right. I mean, there's a bunch of great companies out there, right? You cannot disregard there. There's a bunch of good companies. Now, you have to but you can use them all. So you have to pick the one that talks to you the best as far as simplicity, as far as just um, ease of use and how often you've been using it, because it plays again a big part of it, because you don't want to use something that you may have trouble, or you don't really want to experiment too much on a patient, and then the patient feels sensitivity, postoperative sensitivity, or staining around margins, etc. So that I think is important to be able to select a good product and you're comfortable using it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the
Yeah.
simpler the process, the easier to use and the more comfortable you get. It's a cycle, right?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's talk a little bit about iCEM. I know it's kind of one of the things we wanted to address today, specifically use cases, why you like it. And I love how we've started this and how you've kind of framed out that, yes, there's a lot of great materials out there, but for you as a clinician and your team, you wanted to have something that was reliable, predictable, and all those good things. So let's go there.
So as a prosthodontist and a speaker, we we get approached by a bunch of companies, okay? And we try out different things. And I mean, what I use in my practice is the one that I like the most. So I don't use one single company. I'm going to say that because I think it's important. But one of the adhesive cements that I use, and then basically nowadays, every single crown or restorative procedure I do, I will bond, I will cement adhesively every single time. So then we simplify the system, right? Even though it's a little bit more technique sensitive compared to using a resin modify, glass ionomer, I just make that decision several years ago that every single restoration would be bonded, period. It just has better results. So then trying out different materials, you start to pick whatever works best in your hands. And iCEM is one of them that I use in my practice. So the system that they developed, it's in a way it's a closed system. So the primer they have, it's built or manufactured or thought out to be used with iCEM.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you don't really want to mix them out. So the technology will talk to themselves. So the primer and the cement will work better together versus you using iCEM with another cement. Okay.
Got it. And then what do you see? I mean, obviously, providing you that confidence that once you decide to do this for all of your patients to build that system, what has your experience been over the years? Like, I mean, obviously the confidence level is there or you wouldn't be using it, but like when you look back and over time, like what are a couple key points of this particular one that you like?
Um, the simplicity, the primer is some people they call primer, so it's not a full adhesive because it talks to the cement, right? So the
Yep.
primer is very thin, and they have a technology that they call PA, which is a penetration adhesive. So it's very thin. It's alcohol solvent, so it penetrates deeper into the dentin for that reason. So some people like that because makes that uh, um, layer a little thinner so you can go deeper on the adaptation. So that is something that I like about it. That iCEM can and cannot be etched. So it's a self-etch. So it's a combination. So if you like to etch, you can use etchant before, or you can self-etch. You don't need to etch. So if it's a deeper margin and you don't want to put the etch there that they may irritate the gum, so you can go and confidently use it without etchant. So that's a great thing that I like. So, and if we want to geek out, as you mentioned, there's another technology that they developed, which is called the IS. So it's a double initiator system. You have the hydrophobic and the hydrophilic side of it, which whenever, even though it's a microscopic level, so you have the hydrophobic, which is the side of the restoration, and the hydrophilic, which is the side of the tooth enamel dentin that has more moist to it. So whenever they bond, they will get both benefits. So it's a great technology that there's other companies that also
Yep.
have that, but it's a great thing. What else they have? They when the primer in the primer they have this silane in it. But the silane is very, in general, they're very not stable. They're not stable. So they encapsulated that silane. They call the technology is LLS. So it's long-lasting silane. So because they encapsulate, so it protects from the acidity of the monomer that is incorporated into the adhesive, right? So, and that will last longer, long term. So all of those will bring several benefits to the restoration, to the cement line, and obviously to the patient, right?
So I like to ask this because I know there's different levels of a lot of different products and materials from a learning curve perspective. But for a doctor that's watching this that has not used this, any suggestions from your experience on some things to look out for or some ways to accelerate that learning curve? Maybe there is, maybe there's not, but just anything from your experience you think would be helpful for someone that's watching this that has not used this particular material.
I mean, this material is, again, is very simple, and it's meant to be used together. So don't mix different products, right? Different companies or different products with this system. This system is kind of was designed and fabricated to be built and work together.
Yeah.
So I would say that would be to get the best out of it is use the system from start to finish.
Yep.
Um, Two is the simplicity. Again, so you don't need to really think about too much outside of that. So it's almost self-explanatory. You can etch or not. Um, you don't need to over dry because, as I mentioned, the it's a very thin primer, so it evaporates fairly easy. So what I do, I soak the tooth uh, surface,
Mm-hmm.
let that material, let that primer be absorbed by the dentin or the enamel. If I have enamel, I always etched. It's literature supports that, so you want to have an etch on enamel. But if you're talking about dentin and you don't do immediate seal of that dentin, so you want to give that dentin time to absorb the primer. That will make your bonding stronger,
Mm-hmm.
okay, or last long.
Yeah.
To cement, once it's cemented, to clean, and that's a personal preference, and depends what kind of curing light you're using. Because if you're using something like Velo, which is a very, very strong light, and if you want to pre-cure or give that gel phase, those tack curing before you clean, you have to do it. You can do it, but you have to do it very fast. Some people like that gel phase, other people not so much, but it definitely help if you're starting into adhesive cementation. Having that gel phase helps clean up.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to be careful not to over cure, and then you have a very hard layer to clean up, and it can become a mess. But I would
Yeah.
say, I mean, keep it simple is the easiest way.
So I love it. We just geeked out on a lot of the clinical aspects of it and breaking all that down. From a business perspective, Roberto, I mean, is there anything you can think about, like when you look at this and connecting it to whether it be the confidence that you have to see more patients, less issues moving forward, like anything that you can make a correlation that gives you a confidence level to make a connection to the business aspect of your practice.
Business, I would say, material wise. So the tip is very short. So they claim, right? I never measured it, but you can see it. They claim that you can save about 30%
Okay.
of that cement line. So that little cartridge you have will last 30% longer using their system
Yeah.
because of the mixing tip and whatnot.
Yeah.
That's one. Two, this cement system in particular has different colors. So you don't, if you need a little darker, a little lighter, a little more opaque or translucent, you have that all.
Mm-hmm.
Business aspect and setup, it's you can have less of an inventory and you deal with one company.
Yeah.
Efficiency, it's another big part of business area because if you're more efficient, it doesn't mean that you're skipping steps. You just becomes more proficient and in a way less steps, so you can make it faster.
Yeah.
So then end of the day, you have you potentially has more productivity that you can go on. But those are the main things
Yeah.
I think of when we're thinking about business aspect of it.
Yeah, and then to wrap us up, like from the patient perspective, I get the opportunity to speak with a lot of clinicians in 2026 now, and I feel like patients are asking more questions of all of you than maybe they ever did in the past,
Yeah.
for a whole host of reasons, right? AI or just for whatever it's worth. But how do you like to communicate to your patients? When you make this decision to use a material that you trust and have confidence it's going to give them the confidence that they need, with more and more patients asking more questions or being more curious, right, about the work that's being done with their oral health and their restorations. How do you like to answer that, when knowing that you can use, great materials like this?
I I mean, some people don't believe, but it's like I don't really talk too much about it with the patient. That's
Yeah.
the honest answer.
Yeah.
That's my job to
Yeah.
give the patient the best. I'm not cutting corners on materials, techniques, steps. I don't. That's part of our protocol. That's part of my philosophy, my integrity.
Yeah.
So the only thing I have is my reputation. So I
Yep.
can't mess that up by cutting some corners. And in my opinion, obviously you want to not overspend. You
Yep.
don't want to spend money that you don't need to, etc. So if you can be smart with your money,
Yeah.
that's awesome. And I know a bunch of doctors and they try to save money on labs and materials sometimes, and it's just not worth it
Yeah.
in the end, right?
Yep.
Because you may have to redo it, you may have to, it may not look right, and then you end up redoing it, or it won't last as long. Well, you want it to last long, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so because that reputation builds up. So in my opinion, you want to go with a reputable company. And there's, as we mentioned, there's several there. Here, Kulzer is worldwide known German
Yep.
company.
Yep.
Um, so it's
Yeah.
that's so I don't talk too much with
Yeah.
the patient. If they ask
Yeah.
and I go, okay, let's talk about it, and they ask, oh, you're using disilicate or you're using zirconia, and I was like,
Yeah.
well, what kind of cement are you using? I mean, and I was like, you've been consulting with Dr. Google. Well,
Right.
now
Right.
you're doing it
Yeah.
with chat, right? You're
Yeah.
talking to Dr. GPT.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
funny because they sometimes want to just show that they're smart, I guess,
That's
that
it.
they're
Yeah.
like they're not
Yeah.
gonna get fooled.
Yeah.
But the responsibility is the doctor's responsibility. And he's the one who needs to know what to use, when to use it. And
Yeah.
so that's my answer.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm glad you brought that up because I think, dentistry has changed in a lot of ways. There certainly are more, doctors that patients can go to for a host of different reasons. And, to your point, right, when you're doing it properly and you
Mhm.
have the confidence to use the materials, patients trust that. They tell others that they had a great experience, and when it's all said and done, that's all that matters. But yeah, I was just curious, because I know that we're hearing more and more about patients being a little bit more curious, but I don't really want to know, or do I care about what material is being used, as long as the I don't have any post-op sensitivity.
Exactly.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
want to know,
yeah,
the only thing you want to know is like, it's gonna look good, it's
yes,
gonna hurt,
yes,
and if it's gonna last. That's
that's
bottom
it,
line.
that's it,
If you're using this or that, doesn't matter. It's gonna last. Yes. It's gonna look good. Yes. That's what you want to know. And
yes,
and of course you want to know how much it's gonna cost. That's
of,
another thing, right?
of course, yeah, yeah,
But that's the thing. I mean, I'm not new to dentistry. So I've been, as you mentioned, 20
yeah,
5+ years. So I used to be the cementation would be powder and liquid that you mix them up. Now that doesn't even exist basically in America. Nobody uses it. So technology evolves and it will evolve in a rapid pace right now. I mean, it used to take longer. Now with AI and all that, you know, conversions, I guess, that AI can
yeah,
do to expedite
yeah,
technology, you have to be caught up. Of course, in my opinion, I'm not the first one to try something and then regret.
yeah,
No, and that's, oh my God, I have to redo a bunch of stuff. So I'm not one of those. So I try to make sure I do my research, I read the material, I try out a little bit to see, to fit, to try the waters. And then when I'm confident and I see the result, then I'm all in.
yeah,
So, but you have to be aware that there's new technology, there's better technology out there, and will come new technologies, right? So even though you're comfortable with the product that you've been using for 10 plus years, maybe it works beautiful in your hand. And if it's working, keep using it. But 10, 15 years old technology, it's nowadays a little bit outdated in some cases, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just important, I think, to mention.
Yeah, and I think that's what's been so great over the years. You know, you talked about Kulzer in this case. I think that's what's been so unique about the dental profession is that you as the clinician and dental companies work very closely hand in hand because as you know, they can go into the lab, they can create materials. In a case like this, it's these cements, but at the end of the day, like they've got to work, they've got to consult with all of you, they've got to get your feedback, like what's working actually with patients.
Yeah.
And I think it's always been one of the unique things about the profession that I've loved is that relationship moves the profession forward. And then ultimately, like you mentioned, patients benefit from that. The
Yeah.
technology drives a lot of those newer materials to be better, make things, more efficient and for all of you. And then most importantly, giving you the confidence. So,
And one
uh,
thing that I want to say that I think it's important too about Kulzer and few other companies, not a lot of companies. So they use us as KOLs to evaluate products and see sometimes even before they launch.
yeah,
Right. So then sometimes it's great, sometimes they need to do some improvements,
yeah,
right? Because whatever happened. So that's I think is one of the good things about Kulzer because they use the our knowledge also to help out develop new products. So they don't just launch a product and see what happened and then they do the modification. So
yeah.
I think that's another important thing to mention. They really, really care about what they put out there.
Yeah. Well, and especially like you mentioned, with technology in materials and the like changing as fast as it is, and the desire to want to get that out into dental practices, yeah, if it's not vetted or looked at by all of you, I mean, it's exciting, I think, to be able to get that stuff quick in the hands. But that also could be the other way, like you mentioned. You could create something quicker with some of the newer technology, and things couldn't always go that way. So it's always been a great relationship, and I know that the team at Kulzer was excited to have you, and I know like for the Dental City audience, this is a little bit of what we want to continue to do is have these conversations with doctors like Dr. Macedo and have him talk about like not only like what he uses, but more importantly like why you use it and all aspects. We talked clinical, we talked business, we talked a little bit of we got with Dr. Google, which is always fun, right? We got that in here, but it's been great. Any final thoughts before we wrap?
Um, no, I think basically, I think what I have to say for this particular material or any material, in as a matter of fact, is technology will help the end product.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not only technology, right? It's not just you have the best product in the market. You just have to be proficient. The technique is important to take advantage of that technology, right? If you don't follow the specifications and the recommendations of the manufacturer, whatever you're using though, it will affect the end result,
Yeah.
right? The good thing and the bad thing about adhesive dentistry is no matter how good or how bad you are, it will cement. The restoration will stay there. Now, if it's good, if you follow the protocols and everything else, it will last you the longest time without, without any concerns or problems. If you don't follow the protocol, or if you're sloppy with the protocol, that will fail soon. And then, of course, you're going to blame the manufacturer, or we're famous about it, blaming the lab. If something happens, the lab's fault. We have that, we can do that because the lab is not normally not next to us. In
Right.
my case, the lab is next door, so it's in-house lab, so I can't really
Yeah.
I have to be
You
careful when.
gotta, yeah, yeah.
But
You gotta, yeah.
but it's just that thing is I think it's important. The material is important, but it's as important as your protocol, as your technique.
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean, it was a pleasure being with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank
You was,
you.
yeah, likewise. And such great insight. Again, I think that that's super important that gets left off a little bit. Like I remember years ago, I sold electric hand pieces, and I remember taking a little bit of extra time to make sure that the clinicians and their team understood it was a big investment, right? To be able to purchase electric hand pieces or a whole 4 or 5 operatories of air driven. Yeah, and so if you're not following some of the protocols from the manufacturer, that can cause some issues. But great episode. We want to thank you so much. And again, for everybody that's listening to this, we'd love to have you subscribe. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe, and of course, same thing on Spotify and Apple. And Dr. Macedo, we really appreciate it. Appreciate the team from Kulzer, and we will have any and all links about iCEM and anything that was spoke about today, whether it be below in the comments or anything like that. So did you think about something else?
Yes, just one thing you mentioned that I thought about it. So if you want to share my link, my Instagram link, feel free, and I can
Excellent.
be reached out by that. So I'm happy to answer questions or anything.
Awesome. Well, we really, really appreciate that. And we'll make sure that your lab gets that Instagram handle as well in case they have any questions about your restoration, like you
Yeah,
mentioned.
yeah. No, I'm
I
happy
love
to
it.
share. I'll share with you the both links.
Awesome. Great. Well, thanks for your time today. We really appreciate it. And until next time, everybody, we'll see you soon.